Many of us would love to be driving around in two-door sports cars, but reality doesn't always match up with that desire. Some of us need practicality, but we don't want to give up that performance edge. And that's where hot hatches come in. Their combination of utility and fun-to-drive characteristics make them the perfect pairing. And among five-door performance cars, it doesn't get much better than the Volkswagen Golf R. So the visual cues to distinguish a Golf R from a regular Golf are not that dramatic. At the front end, you've got a lower, wider front fascia, but it's not crazy with the intake. You've got a consistent horizontal aluminum stripe that goes from the headlights across the grille, and you have another aluminum stripe that goes across the chin. You also have slotted black crossbars, but it's not that dramatic of a front end. It's understated, and that's a consistent theme across the whole car. Even these R logos, there's only 4 of them on the whole car, and they're not in a flashy red or blue. They're just this black and silver accent. There's 1 here, 2 at the front doors, and then 1 on the rear hatch. These headlights too, they're just a clean look, and they're adaptive so they can move as you turn the wheel. So as we move our way to the side of the car, we see a couple things. One, these brand new 19-inch Pretoria wheels. The other thing we notice is this character line that starts at the front wheel arch and works its way through to the rear door and then stops. You know, most cars, the character line will extend all the way to the rear taillights, but Volkswagen, they think this is just enough flair. So here at the rear, we're not dealing with any massive rear spoilers or anything like that. Just got this thin lip up at the top and then a black gloss trimmed rear diffuser plus 4 oval exhausts. So under the bonnet, we have a 2.0 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder that carries over from previous years, makes 292 horsepower and 280 pound-feet of torque. That's channeled through a 6-speed dual clutch transmission to all 4 wheels with Volkswagen's 4-motion all-wheel drive system. So once inside, you can see that that modesty we saw on the exterior is even more pronounced on the interior. I'm the brightest thing in here right now. It's a little drab with all the dark finishes and dark trim. I mean, you've got a couple metal accents here and there, but for the most part, it's very monotone. Doesn't communicate that it's a high-end, high-performance car. There are some great things to the interior. The steering wheel feels great. It tilts and telescopes to just the right position. The gauges are clear. These seats are phenomenal, very well bolstered, but it's not that excitement that you might expect from a high-performance hot hatch. Now I'm actually shocked. Sitting behind my own driving position, I'm 6 feet tall. I've got plenty of headroom. I've got plenty of legroom. There really are no complaints to be had for sitting back here for a reasonable distance. And if you're going to be back here for a while, you might complain that the seats are a little stiff, but it's just small potatoes. Very well done. So you can get the Golf R in a couple different specs. You can have it with the regular 6-speed manual, or as we have it equipped with the dual clutch automatic. Now getting the automatic will add $1,100 to your base price. That's just below 36 grand. But there's another option that you're definitely going to want to check the box for, and that's the DCC system, Dynamic Chassis Control. And that basically means you get adaptive driving mode, adaptive dampers that change the characteristic of the car. So you get 4 modes in the Golf R. You get comfort, normal, race, and custom. And custom is basically like Audi's individual mode, where you can tailor the transmission responsiveness, the suspension damping, the throttle mapping. You can change all those things individually based on how you like your car to perform on a daily basis. Now, one thing I have noticed when I'm flipping through the different drive modes is that there isn't a huge difference between them. Unlike some cars where it's a dramatic difference between either the suspension damping or how long the car holds a gear, in this car it's not that big of a deal if you're in race mode, for example, because you can put it over in the mode and it's not going to hold the gear forever. You're going to have to put it in manual mode if you want to have complete control over the shifts. So I'm going to dive into the manual versus automatic debate for a second here, because I'm a manual person. I always prefer a standard transmission. But in this car, the performance differential is huge. There's about a half second or more difference in the 0 to 60 sprint between the manual equipped car and the automatic. Now, whenever you're driving something like the Golf R, you have to bring up its competitors. And right now, the Ford Focus RS is the most direct rival to this car. And worth mentioning that the RS only comes in a manual transmission, and yet it's still faster to 60 than the Golf R. And granted, the RS does have 50 more horsepower and 70 more pound-feet of torque than the Golf R, but it also weighs more. So it's interesting that Ford, just for the first time entering the highest ends of the hot hatch market, immediately took the Golf R to task. And speaking of competitors, though it isn't exactly, well, at least anymore, in the hot hatch space, Subaru's WRX STI has about the same power and performance as this, the Golf R and the Ford Focus RS. Now with a hot hatchback, there's something that just has to be a given, and that is handling performance. This car excels at that. Going around a track, it just grips like crazy, and the braking performance is equally exceptional. Just such confident stops from any speed. It's also worth noting how great this steering is. It's responsive and direct without feeling overboosted and jittery. Volkswagen's really done their homework on making sure that they fine-tune the steering to really extract the best performance out of the hot hatch. As far as ride quality is concerned, it's actually quite good. It's taut without being harsh, whereas I would say the Ford Focus RS was over-dampened even in its most comfortable setting. This is something you could certainly live with on a daily basis. So earlier generations of Volkswagen's MIB infotainment system were really pretty bad, but this latest one is quite good. It's intuitive, it's sharp, quick responding, and though the screen is not the biggest or of highest resolution, it's such a quick responding system, and all of your main functions are easy to access. And under your performance functions, you can flip between the displays, you can move whichever one you want to prioritize, your G meter or your boost gauge or even your oil temperature. And then of course, if you've got a lap timer, that's for you track day bros. So the Golf R is priced about 10 grand more expensive than the GTI. And people are asking, is it actually 10 grand better of a car? Well, that really depends on what you want to use it for. If you're doing track days every weekend, then that extra 70-odd horsepower is going to mean the difference between you getting past it every straightaway or not. Now, adding on those options, the DCC bundled with the navigation, that's an extra $2,200 right there. You want the dual clutch transmission, that's an extra $1,100. Quickly, this can be a $40,000 car. And at that price point, you're stepping on Audi S3 territory, which is more of a luxury experience. So, the price point, it's as good as I think Volkswagen can get away with, and it's priced competitively with the Ford Focus RS and with the Subaru WRX STI. And beyond the nitty-gritty stuff to complain about, this is really a properly quick, fun car to drive. There are very few cars on the road that are going to be able to best this car in a sprint to 60 or a lap around a twisty back road. This is just fun, and for the money, it's hard to argue with the proposition, but in its wheelhouse as a hot hatchback, it doesn't get much better than this. The inputs, the feel, the sensation you get, sure, it's a little modest on the exterior, but from a driver's perspective, when you're behind the steering wheel, you don't care about any of that. You just care about having a good time.